so that they can check that box.
All right, so I'm looking in the paper, I'm listening to my local radio station, a community, a bulletin board on television, whatever, and I identify one of these meetings. Now what do I do?
Well, you don't want to show up alone. That's for sure. Because they will have a room full of people, depending on the size. They may have, sometimes 15. Who knows? Sometimes 200. A room for 200, and half of the people there are developers or whatever, depending on what it is. Maybe bicycle coalition troops or social justice advocates, etc. You don't want to go alone. You want to get trained. You want to. I've got videos out on the internet about the Delphi Technique, Tea Party Television through YouTube. You can watch my group in action and how we take these people on. I've also got step-by-step instructions on how to do it. But you basically want to work as a team. Now, it's all about saying no and standing your ground and really just being assertive. What it really boils down to is these people are going to try to railroad you. They're going to try to manipulate you, and your job is to keep yourself centered and in a place where they can't manipulate you. Don't let them tell you what you want to think, and that's what they're going to try to do. So you prepare your troops, you get your people trained, you get as many as you can, and you show up to the meetings. You don't need to sign in, you don't need to pre-register. A lot of the tactics that they use to try to keep the public out is they violate the Brown Act all the time, which is the Open Meetings Act. And one of the things that they do is they require people to pre-register so they can figure out who's coming and then try to counter that by stacking the decks with their people. So you don't have to pre-register. You don't have to identify who you are. You just show up. It's an open meeting. And then you just ask a bunch of questions and keep them on the defensive. And don't let them vote. These people, what they're trying to do is they have an outcome that they want to get to, and they want to just move the process along in the meeting such that they get to that outcome. And so all they're trying to do is get you and the other unsuspecting concerned citizens who happen to show up to think that you had some say in this process, and they want you to vote. And they give you very narrow choices. All the choices are ambiguous, but they're all meant to lead to the same conclusion, whatever conclusion they want.
Right.
Whether it's widening a road or, probably not widening a road because they want to get rid of roads, but whether they want to build stack and pack housing, whether they want to create roundabouts for traffic calming, whatever it is they're trying to do, that whole voting process, they will introduce a voting process that's designed and geared to get you to vote for what they want. And so the process, what we want to do as individuals is we don't want them to vote. We don't want these shills and stakeholders to vote because those people will be voting in the meeting, and we need to expose them too. So there's a lot to think about when you're there. You really need a strategy. You really need to get people who are trained, who can stand up to them and say no.
But you never want to be identified as a group.
Well, if it's a one-off meeting, it's probably not a good idea to show up in matching T-shirts.
Yeah.
Matching Tea Party T-shirts or something.
Well, it's just that the media, who always seem to be on the wrong side of these issues, they'll discredit you. Oh, a bunch of Tea Party hacks showed up there. A bunch of anti-American, racist white people showed up. Whatever, and
right.
Then so you need to be, I think, not anonymous necessarily, although that may be beneficial in some cases too. But it seems to me like you don't want to go as the Glee Club,
Well, you don't want to give them any more ammunition.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. When we show up to these meetings, we don't show up. We show up as we pretend we are just concerned citizens, which is ironic because that's what we are. But we have to pretend. And again, you have to remind yourself and the people that are going to these things that this is a game. This is you are entering into a fake meeting, a rigged meeting, a meeting that has actors in it that already know what's supposed to happen, and you're there to bust that up. And so they, if you come in looking as if you're part of some, formed group, necessarily they're going to they'll be able to say or marginalize your input into the process and just, they'll use the media or whatever to say, well, there's this group, even if it's not true. So, what I like to do is send people in. If it's a one-off meeting, you go in separately, you leave separately, you don't make eye contact. Of course, you've trained these people and they know who each other is ahead of time. They meet down the street, so they know who the friendlies are. So that when you're in these meetings and you're asking questions and you're challenging the facilitators and the people who are spouting off all of these communistic, anti-property rights babble, psychobabble, they think that they have an overwhelming opposition out of nowhere. And it's not an organized group. And that's the best way to break up one of these meetings.
Now, you talk about, in very specific terms, two different kinds of meeting styles, a round table and a theater. Explain that a little bit.
Okay, so there's depending on what the meeting room is set up like, will depend on how you want your anti-Delphi forces to seat themselves. So, and you won't know what they're going to have the room set up as. So if it's a theater-style room, you want to position people in a diamond shape. So knowing that you've met people, who's in your group, and when everybody shows up individually or, on their own, they're going to just kind of know where to sit in a diamond shape throughout the room and then fill in on the corners. And that's just so that when you do start asking questions, the shills and the stakeholders that are all over the room will have to be looking around the room, and it just disorients them. It gives your group an appearance of being bigger. Also, you want to have people standing up. You want to have people walking around holding signs, whatever that sign is. If you're at a high-speed rail meeting and you don't like high-speed rail, then, have no high-speed rail or whatever it is. Or this is a rigged meeting. These great signs that say, this is a Delphi meeting, because those people know what's going on. And when you start actually calling them out on the process, they get very nervous. So now if you have individual tables, so you have, let's say, round tables or square tables, usually when you walk into a meeting, you want at least two of your friendlies at each one of those tables, because I can guarantee you that the facilitators are going to have at least 3, maybe 4, if not more, at the table. Now, if you have more people, of course, fill in wherever you want, but you don't want one person at a table that can't handle a bunch of stakeholders and shills yelling at them. You want to kind of group together. You want to pair up with somebody who can handle the opposition, like myself, and with someone maybe who's a little bit more soft-spoken, because you can kind of then do a good cop, bad cop thing too. So, I can be, standing up asking a question, and when they start pouncing on me and telling me to, shut up and sit down, the person next to me or at another table who's kind of quiet could be saying, gosh, I really want to hear what she has to say. I really wish they wouldn't, yell at this person. And so there's definitely, a way to handle this and expose them. And then just keep throwing the light back, shine the light back on the facilitators and the people that have bad behavior there. And one really important thing is, whatever you do, you need to have a videographer. It doesn't have to be professional. You can do this on an iPhone. Of course, having someone there with a camera who has a tripod would be great, but you definitely need to document these things, because I found that even though the meeting itself was documented, videographed by the people that were running the meeting, and they were supposed to be putting that up on public access, it went so badly, the videographer said, this will never see the light of day. And so thank goodness we had brought our own videographer. And so we've been able to expose, by putting these up on YouTube, what actually happens and what these Delphi meetings really look like in action.
All right. So let's say you're sitting at the table, and And what happens to the tables? Is it somebody up front at a podium, and the people at the table are just there like at a dinner, or are they talking about it at the table in groups? How does that work?
Well, usually when you walk in, there's a facilitator, one or two facilitators up at the front at a podium. There's already a facilitator at each table if they're separate tables. And then there's handlers. There's all these like 20-somethings or whatever that are standing around the room that are part of the process but haven't engaged, and they kind of like wait until somebody starts dissenting, and then they start moving around and getting closer to that person or filling in. And but when you walk in, you go sit down. If it's a round table, you want at least two at a table. You sit down and you start asking questions. Start interviewing the people around you. Find out who they are. This is before they know that the meeting has started. Start asking them, so, where do you work? Oh, you're a developer. Oh, you're a planner. Oh, so you live, 50 miles from here. Find out if they have kids. Find out as much about these people as possible, because once the meeting starts, you can later on be using that information against them. Because if there's voting going on, and they'll have clickers or little cards or chips, tokens, they use all kinds of little games and stuff like that, busy work, to vote. If these people are voting, and these are actual stakeholders, the people that have been involved in the process over, who knows how long, a year before, and already had their input, they shouldn't be voting. These stakeholders and people seek to benefit from the outcome. You can be calling them out on this, right. But if you didn't ask the questions ahead of time, you wouldn't know. Yeah,
and so then you could say, well, are you going to profit from this? Are you going to benefit from this?
Exactly.
How much money are you going to make off of this? Are you and your kids going to live in this neighborhood?
That's
are
right.
you going to ride the rail?
You don't even live here. Oh, you're from Canada. Oh,
Yeah, right. No, that's clever. Do you find that it's hard to get people that will stand up and do this stuff to counter this insurgency, I call it?
You know what? I used to, because people were scared, and it's a very difficult thing to do. Not everybody can get up and, ask the difficult questions and stand up to these people. But like I said, we can use good cop, bad cop. We can use those people who are soft-spoken to help back us up. But I did initially find last year, about a year and a half ago, is when I went to my first Delphi meeting. And literally, I got a bunch of patriots together, and we met at the pizza shop. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in, we're going to bust this meeting up. And we had a brief strategy session, maybe a half hour, and then we went and did it. And it was successful. And since then, I've developed all of these techniques. And what I did was I made it my mission that in California, in my area, at least in the 9 Bay Area counties, where we are being affected by private property rights, land grabs, and all of these things through this One Bay Area process that's been going on, I made it my mission that the next time that these people were coming to town with their charrettes, that not just my county, but every one of the 9 Bay Area counties would be ready to fight. And so literally almost every weekend for the past year, I have been going and speaking in front of groups. I do 3-4-hour sessions where, I teach them all of this stuff. I show them videos. We role play. And these videos, showing them the videos of what my group has done and how we're affecting our meetings has really helped people. And across the nation, I get other groups that have watched our videos and have gotten our step-by-step instructions, and they go, gosh, we see that, we see you guys doing it, just average citizens doing it, and we know that we can do it, and now they're doing it. And I'm getting calls. I'm literally doing a training session this weekend in Hollister. I did one a couple weeks ago in San Diego. I've got groups in Missouri. And really, it boils down to I am teaching people how to say no. It's really about, it's just really about giving permission to people to say no and set their boundaries and really mean it.